We've seen what Victor Hedman can do in the postseason. You had to face him in the playoffs as well during that series. But, I mean, he's a challenge out there.
He's even better now than he was back in 2015. He's a top defenseman in the league. Who are the top 5 guys that come to mind? You can list any 7, 8 guys, but Victor Hedman's going to be in that top 5 every single time. He's a combination of size, of speed. He plays the power play, he kills penalties, he's going to be out there when the game's on the line, and he's got years to play. So it's one of the reasons why Tampa Bay is a top team in the East.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch Tampa Bay kind of get themselves back into a comfortable position. They're right behind the Bruins coming into play on Tuesday night. Boston is 6 points ahead of the Lightning in that Atlantic division. But the battles between those two teams recently have been really fun to watch. I mean, we saw an unbelievable game on Saturday night with the Boston Bruins losing to the Tampa Bay Lightning, but a little bit of everything, scoring, fighting, everything.
To me, what stood out in that game, and probably everybody else watching it, was the scrums, the 5-on-5 line scrums. I wouldn't call it a line brawl because that would be insulting Keith Jones's era of what a brawl really is all about. But I look at this Tampa Bay team, and it seems like for years they've been a skilled east-west power play, let's score a lot of goals, fancy plays type team. And we all know what happened to them last year in that 4-game sweep against Columbus. Going into Boston and initiating a lot of these scrums, not taking a backward step, that's the Boston Bruins. They don't get pushed around at home. They answered the bell. It turned out to be a great game. I think that's a great sign for Tampa going forward, the fact that they're not just going to try to beat you on the power play. They're not going to wait for Stamkos or Kucherov to score 2 goals and win the game. They played a solid team game with a lot of energy in it. And Boston, I wouldn't be too concerned. They love that type of play. Anytime you want to mix it up at the Boston Garden, they're going to be there to do that. Those are the 2 best teams in the East, might be the 2 best teams in all of hockey right now.
And you mentioned don't wait for Steven Stamkos. Of course, he's out of the lineup right now, too, for the Lightning. Probably not coming back until maybe we'll see him in the second round of the playoffs. But, you mentioned something interesting, that sweep to the Columbus Blue Jackets last year, the shocking sweep of this dominating President Trophy top team in the NHL, Tampa Bay Lightning. 4-game sweep. You have to wonder what that did to that team. Do you think it made them better, what they learned from that experience?
Absolutely. This is a bad statement to make, but hockey was easy for them for a while in Tampa Bay. They were winning games. They put their sticks on the ice, and the opponent that they were playing against would say, wow, these guys can really move the puck around, and this is going to be a long night. Oh, there's another goal by Kucherov, game over. You don't win like that in the playoffs, and Tampa Bay figured that out. It's about defending. It's about keeping the puck out of your net. It's about competing. 7 games is over 2 weeks, but it's a really long time when you're matching up against the same person every single shift. You start to learn the tendencies of that player inside and out. You know when they're about to break. You know when they've got more to give. That's why a team like Pittsburgh stands out to me, because Sidney Crosby never backs down. That's why we were good in Chicago. Jonathan Toews, Patrick Kane, they never back down. Tampa Bay is starting to figure that out. They're playing with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. I think last year's 4-game sweep is the best thing that could have happened to them going forward. Obviously, the best thing that could have happened to them was win the Stanley Cup last year, but you don't just win it in one shot. It takes years to build, and Tampa Bay's not going anywhere for a while.
A little bit of adversity maybe was just what the doctor ordered for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, sticking with this division, the Atlantic division, you've got Toronto just behind Tampa, but right behind them, just 1 point back, is this Florida Panthers team that just won't go away. Are they going to eventually, you think, slide into that 3rd spot? Are they going to make the playoffs even?
That's probably the toughest question you've asked me in the 2 years that we've worked with each other. It seems like nobody wants that 3rd spot.
Right.
And the fact that Florida is 1 point behind Toronto now tells me that Toronto's been slipping a little bit, because both these teams have been wildly inconsistent. They're fun to watch. They're very entertaining. They're 2 teams that we'll have on the TV every night to watch the fancy plays on both ends. A lot of goals against, a lot of goals for, some dynamic players, but the team game hasn't been there for the most part of the 60-game season to this point. It'll get interesting down the stretch. I like the fact that Morgan Riley's coming back to Toronto. Their defense core has been depleted, a lot of injuries there. That tells a bit of the story. But it'll be a fun race to watch. Both teams, if they up their game and they get into the playoffs, isn't that half the battle, is playing your best hockey at the right time? So we'll see who gets that 3rd spot, but not an easy playoff matchup for whoever.
No, it's not. And you look at Toronto, I mean, they're just so hard to figure out for me. There's so much talent on offense and led by Austin Matthews. But you mentioned they're getting Morgan Riley. That's good for the defense. But the defense, I was actually surprised they didn't go out and get, and I know it's hard to get a defenseman, easier said than done, but they didn't go out and get a a defenseman to try and help the injuries they've had on the blue line and the fact that they haven't been very good defensively. So it's a missing piece for sure. They're going to have to, how do you compensate for a lackluster blue line, if for lack of a better word?
Everybody's got to help out. You can't just put it on the 6 guys playing defense. It becomes a 5-man unit out there, 6 if you count the goaltender. But I liked general manager Kyle Dubas's comments shortly after the deadline. It was the David Ayers game when the walls were caving in Toronto. Everybody was coming down on the Maple Leafs for not being able to win that game. It's a learning process for these guys. Yes, Austin Matthews is a world-class talent, arguably the best goal scorer in the National Hockey League, one of them. Mitch Marner, still a young kid. These are learning steps that they need to take in their career. You can't just be good right from the jump and have it all figured out. You got to realize it takes every night you got to compete. Every night you need more guys on board than the other team does. A team that pops into my mind is Philadelphia. They've competed every single night that they play. Doesn't matter if they're playing Ottawa, doesn't matter if they're playing Washington. They're going to show up and they're going to play hard, and they want to win. And generally speaking, that's who wins the games this time of year.
Well, it's interesting to hear your perspective because you've been there, you've done it, you've won 3 cups, you know what it takes. Which kind of is, for me, what makes Florida so scary because they're led by a guy that was leading you in Joel Quenneville. So you look at the leadership that Joel Quenneville has for this Florida Panthers team and what he's telling them right now. Take me back to your playing days and give me a little bit of insight into what Quenneville is telling his Panthers players right now. Hey, we're right on the cusp. If you want to make the playoffs, this needs to happen. What's he saying?
Well, I probably can't tell you what he's saying when some of those goals go in on Bobrovsky or some of those defensive letdowns are happening out there. He's probably not very happy with that. But this is the time when Joel Quenneville, Mike Kitchen are going to make a difference for the Florida Panthers. Yeah, it's nice to have them for preseason in the first 40, 60 games, but it's crunch time. They're a point out, and a veteran coach and a veteran coaching staff can really make those adjustments in a game week to week that can put you over the top. So we'll see how it works out. On the flip side is Toronto. They got a young coach, a rookie guy in there, and Sheldon Keefe. So I know these teams aren't the powerhouses in the Eastern Conference that some of the other ones are, but it's still a fun race to watch. And it's got to be Florida because nobody's coming after that. There's no Buffalo doesn't really have a chance. Montreal's in trouble. So it's Florida, Toronto for that 3rd spot. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's really that Metropolitan Division that there's a lot of teams chasing out in the back. But all right, race for the playoffs continues. Sharpie Fun, another episode. That is it. Another episode of Our Line Starts. We're done. Remember, new episodes drop every Wednesday. Subscribe for automatic downloads wherever you get your podcasts. So we'll see you next time.